Welcome back, everyone, to Check the Kick podcast, Sherdog.com. I am the host, Devin, and pretty interesting stuff from the past weekend that we're going to talk about, and then we'll move on to UFC 294. I've got a special guest coming up in the second segment of the show. First segment of the show, out with the old. We're going to just get right into it. We're going to get through it as fast as possible because it sucked. Misfits Boxing, probably the worst two televised fights that I have ever seen back to back. Definitely the worst two televised boxing matches that I've ever seen back to back. Supposedly they did like 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. We'll see. But we had Logan Paul facing Dillon Danis. I can't even believe I'm saying this on this show, but it's combat sports. And then we had Tommy Fury fight KSI. It would have been more interesting if all four of them were just dumped into the ring at the same time and they all just fought each other. But first fight, Logan Danis. Oh my God, Logan Danis. Logan Paul, Dillon Danis. It was just bad. Logan was just kind of throwing sloppy combinations at Danis, and Danis just kind of fought behind the high guard and walked him down the whole time. He tried to jump guillotine, got hit with one ground and pound shot, got DQ'd. He's appealing it because supposedly Logan's security team got into the ring too fast. The fight was just terrible. And then KSI and Tommy Fury, the commentary on this is extremely biased. Hawani was on there, a couple other people. But they were saying that they expected Tommy Fury to, actually show more boxing, but he didn't have the opportunity because KSI was just bouncing at range. Looked like he was almost doing jumping jacks, bouncing at range in this bladed karate type stance. And then he would come in, flail a big overhand right, and then just engage in the clinch. The rightful person won that fight, but it just sucked. Like, we're getting scammed here, guys. We're paying for fights. I didn't pay for this, but people are paying for these fights. They are expecting a fight to happen, and what we're watching is just not a fight. Like, it was bad. Not too sure where they go after this. Quite frankly, I don't give a shit. This you could throw away in the outside garbage because it stunk. I just, shout out to the UFC 281, the UFC Vegas 81 main event, Edson Barboza and Sodiq Yusuff, for putting on a real fight, because those two, again, we're being scammed here. You've got guys like Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, and even Canelo's last fight was a little bit lackluster in my opinion, but these guys are coming to box. Even the Francis Ngannou Tommy Fury, as much of as a sideshow that's still going to be a real fight. These guys just didn't go for it, didn't put anything on the line. We're paying top dollar for fighters that do put their health on the line, and we're just not getting that. Hopefully Misfits Boxing doesn't happen anymore. I think that was their opportunity for their Malinaji, Artem Lobov thing, and hopefully it falls, because I truthfully don't want to cover it anymore. It was on during the Lisboa fight, which was a bad fight. So there was just bad fights on in general during that time on Saturday. I was interested due to all the sideshow shit Dillon Danis is doing. Got me a little interested, but the fight sucked. Both fights sucked. Again, throw them away in the outside trash. Misfits Boxing, that's all you're getting. Real fights. I'm going to talk about two fights from the previous card. There was a bunch of good wins. Terrence McKinney went out and got a 20-second knockout that could have very well been like a 7-second knockout, because the first knee up the middle crushes opponent, sent him reeling back, kind of looks at Herb, stalls a second, ground and pound, 20-second knockout. Beautiful. Michel Pereira, gets a beautiful knockout win over Andre Petroski. Kind of just one shot at him. Really good way after all the BS surrounding his last 170-pound fight booked against Wonder Boy. He kind of just made all that nonsense go away with this big knockout win over Petroski. So that was dope. Good on him. Great win, great performance. It just all around good. First fight we're going to talk to you guys about from that UFC 81 card. Adrian Yanez gets TKO finished by Jonathan Martinez, and this is a really impressive and great performance by Jonathan Martinez. We need to start talking about him as one of the better kickers in the UFC in general. He's got a game like, I'm not going to call him a one-dimensional fighter, but he's definitely a one-track minded fighter. And once that dude gets his kicks going off on people, there's just not much anyone can do to stop them. He's violent. The way that he kind of pivots out, changes the angle to still land the kicks, it was impressive. This is the second loss in Adrian's UFC career. He's been finished in both of them, and finished very differently. He got clubbed. He tried to go and have a punch out fight with Rob Font, and hindsight's 2020. If you look at Rob Font's fights, you'll think, man, Marlon Vera and Jose Aldo just went out there and punched with him and hurt him so many times. Why can't I just do that? Why can't I knock him out? Again, I've spoke on this before, but if you really look at it, those dudes couldn't finish Rob Font, and they are clearly more durable than Adrian Yanez, and they're just clearly better fighters than Adrian. And I love Adrian. I think he's a great guy. But the way he got finished tonight, I don't think he was. I think he just needs his Metro Fight Club issues. Well, when his head coach Salsa Lees died, he was like 27 or 28 years old, ended up taking over the whole gym, becoming the head coach. That's a lot on your plate for a young guy, and I just don't think he's getting those proper training camps anymore. He's such a good boxer. He's so slick and so punishing with his hands on the inside. Like, I would love to see him go to like a Trevor Whitman, something like that. But this fight here, really predicated and was just all about the kicks from Martinez. Again, Martinez was firing the kicks from the inside. He has the ability to just change the fight with like 2 or 3 kicks. It was really impressive. Adrian also, again, I just don't know if he fought with the best game plan here. He needed to either have a Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya type performance where light on the front leg, pressure, check the kick, move forward, throw your jab, move forward, force him on the back foot. He went for it a couple times, but Adrian was getting into the pocket, trying to throw combinations, and then exiting the pocket, and then just getting crushed for it, where he needed to have a more of a intelligent forward pressure game, causing Martinez to get on the back foot. You're going to eat leg kicks against Martinez. That's his thing. Another guy on this card, Chris Gutierrez, his main training partner, another major leg kicking guy. You have to stop that. And you can't circle on the outside. Adrian was, circling, trying to stay on the outside. Martinez is just going to cut the angle and kick the shit out of your leg. And that's what he did to Adrian. There was something that was posted on Twitter where Adrian kind of was getting on the scale. Looked like he took a misstep and his leg kind of wobbled. Someone retweeted it at him saying, is this the reason why you got essentially so beat up so easy from those kicks? And his response was no excuses. Who knows? Every fighter goes into a fight with an injury, but I don't think it mattered. Martinez is one of those dudes where he has that like Alex Pereira leg kick where like it doesn't look that hard. They sound thudding and they just look incredibly damaging. What a night of kickers on this card, UFC Vegas 81. We had Barboza, Gutierrez, Jonathan Martinez, all these dudes slay people with leg kicks. Martinez is a guy, if you match him up properly, like why couldn't he go out there and just kick Sean O'Malley's legs over and over again. I mean, that's a potentially winnable fight for him with his style. But then you think about, he called out Merab. I don't like him in a fight with Merab. Merab is a guy that will put that pressure, will close the distance on you and force you on the back foot and will not allow you to get those kicks off. Those leg kicks happen at a very specific range where if you crowd that range and you don't give that space, they cannot get that kick off. And Yanez just didn't have a game plan for it. He was done after 3 or 4 kicks. He was falling to the ground, grabbing his leg, screaming. Not too sure why the fight went on as long as it did, to be honest. Herb kind of mercy stopped it. Martinez in the post-fight presser, he stated he was surprised that the fight went on as long as it did, just due to the damage and Adrian kind of grabbing his leg and screaming. I picked Adrian Yanez in this fight. I thought he was going to fight with a much more intelligent game plan. This isn't one of those wins for Martinez where Adrian lost the fight. This loss didn't happen because Adrian. This loss didn't happen because Adrian made one key mistake and Martinez took advantage of it. No, Martinez came out with a proper game plan, cut down this tree, chop him wood, and I mean, when you have legs like his and you have that ability, you're gonna just F up so many dudes. I do think Yanez would benefit from a full camp, a real camp, a camp where he's not head coaching. And it's a tough go for him and all his training partners. Smotherman, like his main training partner, his boy, a guy that's always in the corner with him, got iced with the quickness on the Contender Series. Another one of his main training partners, Rafion Stotts, got iced by Patchy Mix in his last fight in Bellator. That camp is just all those bantamweights there in that camp, man. They're all main training partners with each other, and they don't seem to be getting as good of training as they used to. I don't know if they're all good fighters. They're all really good fighters, but I do think Yanez would benefit from a camp switch. Someone that can emphasize and give him a game plan. I just don't know if he had a game plan for this fight. Someone that can, help him develop a game plan for someone that has such a heavy kicking game. Enter the pocket, get behind your jab, keep the fight within punching range. Do not circle out. This is one of those fights for Adrian where he needed to rely on his inside footwork, but all he was doing was into the pocket, land his combinations, exit the pocket, get kicked. And like, if you're not an crazy knockout puncher, everyone's a puncher at bantamweight, but if you're not some like one shot artist, hurt people with one punch, like and you're having those prolonged exchanges, you need to have that footwork in the pocket, L step, land your shots, L step, land your shots. It's an easy comparison to make, but I mean, look at the way it's boxing, not kickboxing, but look at the way someone like Mike Tyson was able to bob, weave, enter the pocket, land his shots, keep everything within his range. When Mike Tyson fought people, 80% of his fights happened in his range. And that's what Adrian needed to do. This fight needed to demand this fight happen in his range, and he just couldn't do it. Big win for Martinez. Again, he called out Merab. I don't think that that's happening, but hell, the UFC might, try to give Merab the shaft and say, hey, look, you don't want to fight Aljamain, you don't want to fight the champion. Here you go, fight this young contender. I could see it happening. More than likely, he'll probably fight Pedro Munoz. It'll probably be on a main card of a fight night, which is cool. Or like maybe even like a prelim main event on a UFC card before the end of the year. That'd be great. I could totally see him getting one back. Pedro Munoz just beat his main training partner and his buddy, Chris Gutierrez. They were on the same card. I would love to see Martinez get kind of built up. Such a soft-spoken dude. His nickname is the Dragon. When I think about Jonathan Martinez fighting, I just keep thinking about his loss to Davey Grant and how he got splattered. But like, this guy's not a bum. Everyone gets caught. It's MMA. You don't get perfect records here. I need to put some respect on Jonathan Martinez's name. He's a damn good fighter, and he's a guy to definitely keep an eye out on. All right, guys. The real fight. Jonathan Martinez and Adrian Yanez was a damn good fight, but this was a freaking fight. Not going to call it a barn burner, but this was a fight where there was crazy momentum shifts. Edson Barboza defeats Sodiq Yusuff via unanimous decision. I scored a 48-45, a 10-8 round in the first round for Yusuff, and then Barboza swept the rest of the fight on my scorecard. Edson Barboza's he's a freaking action hero, guys. The mental fortitude for a 37-year-old striker that has moved down a division that made his name at 55, which is a killer's division, moves down to 45. Edson Barboza is just a fucking man. I got one F-bomb here. And hold on, real quick, Darren fucking Elkins. Darren Elkins does get another win in the UFC, does get a finish. Did he fight a bum? Probably. But still, yeah. So Edson fucking Barboza, Darren fucking Elkins, two dudes, OGs. Barboza comes out and just is willing to bite down, plant his feet, and just brawl with Yusuff. He found out that he probably couldn't brawl with first round Yusuff, got clipped up, on queer streets. He was out of sorts for 5 minutes. This whole fight, there were other media members calling this a 10-7 round. I've been watching fights for a while, and I've never scored a 10-7. They did score a 10-7 for Ilia Topuria over Josh Emmett. I don't know what round. I don't remember, but I know someone did. This is as close to a 10-7 as you could get. I don't know how Barboza came back from this. The dude is... You can get Barboza out of there. There are dudes that have hurt Edson Barboza. I read his record out last time he was fighting here. But, you got to be Justin Gaethje to go one punch this dude. And if you need to be a pressure fighter that's also a grappler, someone with a true wrestling and grappling advantage and threat, quite frankly, over him to make this game plan work. And Yusuff was this close. Guys, he was this close to making it happen. But Barboza just hung tough, did what he needed to do to survive, playing BJJ off his back. The first round, everything Yusuff threw hurt him. He was hitting him with shots behind the ear. They were just swinging in the pocket, swinging big hooks at each other. Barboza looked like someone took a freaking cheese grater and just rubbed it on his face. He was bloody. He was battered. And then Yusuff, you could tell about, I think it was like around the 3-minute, 30-second mark, he starts wrestling. And at that point, I was like, oh, maybe he blew his load. Maybe this is him, I was stuck in between this is him trying to do what Khabib did and this is him trying to do what Bryce Mitchell did versus this is him tired and knowing that, hey, I need to secure this round. I might be tired here. I need to get on top and try to do some damage. He landed a couple nice elbows on top. Barboza was, really fighting for these leg entanglements, these heel hooks. And we saw recently Ton Lee over in ONE FC heel hook somebody. And then we also saw him absolutely bludgeon one of the best heel hookers in MMA and in BJJ, Gary Tonin. So heel hooks in MMA are just dangerous because it leaves you open. You got two hands on one foot and it leaves you open to get freaking blasted. But Barboza was just playing BJJ, playing off of his back, being active, just causing these weird entanglements to just, if you're making your opponent defend, then you don't have to defend. You're not getting clubbed in the face. So it was kind of smart. It was tactful by Barboza. I don't know if that would be me. I thought maybe he was just going to close his guard and kind of just hold on and keep his guard and maybe cause a stand up. But no, the dude survived. He did what he had to do. Freaking OG comes out there, second round, wins a second round. He starts slipping the jab. And you know what he starts doing is he's like, hey, I'm having trouble finding this guy upstairs with my first shots. or with my, throwing a jab and then trying to throw a big hook or a big cross. Also, sidebar, Edson Barboza's boxing, he's a great kicker, phenomenal kicker. He's one dude that has TKO and knockout wins with all different types of kicks, leg kicks, head kicks, body kicks, knees. He's very dexterous with his legs and very violent and powerful, but his boxing is also very good. He's got big power in his hands. The way that he was he forced Yusuff on the back foot, and whoever was having the forward momentum and the forward pressure, whoever was on the front foot was winning this fight. The second he forced Yusuff on the back foot, this fight changed on a dime. Flipping, it's like two sides of a coin. Barboza slipping the jab, started landing his jab. Anytime he would land his jab, he goes, "Oh, if I could touch you with my jab, guess what else I could do? I could touch you to the body." His left hook to the body, Yusuff's got a damn good poker face, but this shows you guys the importance of body punching and kicking in MMA. You look at fights like Jan Blachowicz versus Dominic Reyes, where he just crushed him with the body kick over and over and over again, made him get desperate, started using his hands, murked him, finished him. And this was just another fight where you're on the back foot now. You're winning this fight with forward pressure. I'm having a little bit of trouble finding your head and hurting you upstairs. Let me just crush your body over and over again. Barboza's left hook to the body. Boom, boom, boom. Firing, landing. Tons of success. Then he starts throwing the body kick. Firing. Tons of success. Oh, now I'm having success to the body? Well, that left hook's not going to the body anymore. That left hook's going to come wrap around your guard and club you behind the ear. Edson Barboza's tough as fuck. Durable. Great cardio and willingness to stick to a game plan and be able to take a beat. He took a licking and kept on ticking. This is the first time too where he's lost rounds, like against Shane Burgos. He lost, he came back and won. This is the first time like he's gotten like truly shit kicked and come back and win. He's had wars with everyone, wars with Hooker, multiple wars with Paul Felder. He's had wars with everyone. I mean, the beating Khabib alone put on him would change 90% of MMA fighters' careers. The mental fortitude behind this man, the spinning wheel kick that he hit Yusuff with in the third round. I scored it a 10-8. Not mad at if anyone that scored it a 10-9. Not every 10-8 looks exactly the same. There is definitely strict criteria for it, but it's just the same way not every 10-9 round looks the same. Some 10-9s are this close. Some are this close. Some are this close. 10-8s can be the same way. As per the unified scoring criteria. I think he also might have broke Yusuff a little bit mentally, where Yusuff's like, dude, I hit this guy in the head with a hammer 1,000,000 times and he didn't die. And he's coming at me, face tattered, bloody, eyes all swollen, eyes halfway swollen shut. He's punching me to the body, kicking me to the body. I can't hurt this guy anymore. Oh shit, he hit me with a spinning wheel kick. Now, yeah, Yusuff doing the chicken dance. Someone needs to put together a video, a GIF of everyone Barboza's made do the chicken dance, and then put the chicken dance polka music. That'd be great. Someone on Twitter, if you're listening to this, please do that or tag me in it. That's my handle right there, or wherever it is. Find me there and please tag me in it, because that will be funny. I will laugh at that. And then he starts wrestling and getting takedowns in the 5th round, Barboza. And he's just like, he hurt Yusuff, and the dude's tired, and I get it, but he hurt Yusuff with that spinning wheel kick, and he's like trying to jump on an anaconda. And it's like, no, just grab his one arm and punch him behind the ear like a good 3 to 5 times, and you probably got this fight finished. Didn't change the result. Right guy won. Some people were scoring this fight a draw. For me, clearly, based on the way I see the scoring criteria and my personal interpretation of it, I don't see a way you could really score any other. Round 2 could be close, but I just don't see how you could score it any other way. And this was heroic. This this is a guy that lives fighting. I thought he might retire after this, but no, he's fucking Edson Barboza. He's just watching this fight. My fiance and her and I were about to go out last Saturday evening, and I was like, hey, let's just leave whenever the fight's over. And she's like, okay, cool. I live on the west. I'm on Pacific time, west side. So it wasn't late for me. 2 minutes into the first round, I'm like, start getting ready. This fight's about to be over. Nope. Barboza just hung tough. Kept pushing. Got his boxing going. Got his body kicks going. He didn't win this fight with really any leg kicks at all, which is kind of surprising, but he didn't need to. He really relied on his boxing and his body kick and that one spinning wheel kick. And everything else, he just did the better work with his boxing. He got on the front foot. He was not deterred. 99.9% of the human population would have been deterred, would have quit on the stool, would have been done, would have checked themselves out. Not Edson Barboza. It's a dangerous guy, man. Even if you look at his fights with like Giga Chikadze, like Giga had to go to war before he got his finish against him. There are not many people that have had harder UFC careers than someone like Edson Barboza. I mean, he has that's not a champion. You know, champions, once you grab that belt, even if you lose it, we're going to talk about an ex-champion that's fighting a crazy contender. You know, guys like RDA. RDA's fought killers, but he held the belt. Barboza's fought a very similar level of talent in multiple weight classes. Never held the belt. Yusuff did post on his social media today. He's in an arm cast, so who knows what happened. He didn't make any excuses. Cleanly lost the fight. Big step back for him too. I'm not too sure what Yusuff should do next. I think he needs to take a chill pill. He's had, opportunities against Arnold Allen, lost. Opportunities here against Barboza, lost. And really his only knockouts, like his best win is like Gabriel Benitez. Not his best win, but his best knockout wins, probably Gabriel Benitez, and he got hurt in that fight. So I think this is a little bit telling of where Yusuff is in his career. And, maybe as high as he's good enough to improve. Coming from the camp he's from, I don't know if he's going to make him there. He just needs to chill. He needs to fight pretty far back in the rankings at this point. Not pretty far back, but like give him someone in the top 20, even someone out of the top 15 when he comes back. His arm's broken from what it looks like, so it's going to be a while before we see him fight again. And he was already on the bench for a while. Barboza, on the other hand, it's too bad. It's too bad the Korean Zombie fight. I love Max Holloway, probably top 5 favorite fighters. And I like Korean Zombie, and what the fight seemed very honorable between them. But it's a shame it wasn't Korean Zombie versus Edson Barboza. Because that would have been, just violent, 2 old dudes, guys that have been around forever, guys that, probably always wanted to fight each other. But since that's not the case, I think we could see Barboza fight someone like Josh Emmett, maybe some sort of Apex main card, main event. I'm cool with that. Barboza's just a man. We need to give him his flowers, sing his prayers. Dominic Cruz called him a Hall of Famer during the fight, and I was like, I never thought about that, but he's a Hall of Famer in my eyes after that performance. Just cojones, balls. Edson Barboza's a G. You guys tell me who you think he should fight next. That's it for this segment, guys. We're going to go ahead and move on to In With the New, and I will catch you guys here in just a few. Moving on to the final segment of the show, In With the New, I brought a special guest. I'm going to call him a tag team partner of mine. Him and I have done a couple of things together. You guys might have seen some of his stuff. I think he works for Sherdog. Not too sure. We got Ben Duffy. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me. You've subbed on enough of my shows that it was the least I could do to return the favor.
I appreciate it. This is very last minute that Ben's coming on. If you guys are listening to this, so shout out to Ben. Thank you so much, man. I was looking over my notes, getting ready to do the show, and I was like, you know what? I can't do this alone. This card is too damn good. There is too many high stakes, and there is, with all the crazy matchups and all the, I mean, who shuffles the deck better than the UFC? But with all the crazy stuff going on, I had to bring someone on. So thanks again, man. First fight of the card that we're going to talk to you guys about. We picked 3. We have Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. Magomed Ankalaev is a pretty heavy favorite. He's coming in at minus 340, and Johnny Walker comes back at plus 270. Mr. Ben Duffy, you probably just talked about this fight less than 48 hours ago. What do you think of the UFC matchmaking here? Do you think this is a smart fight? Do you think this has title implications?
It has definite title implications. Ankalaev fought for a title in his last fight, went to a draw that most observers thought he won. This absolutely has title implications. By all rights, he should be in his first title defense right now. Obviously, we can't say with any certainty that this is going to be a title eliminator, considering that next month we have the return of Yuri Prochazka against Alex Pereira. Jamal Hill is still out there somewhere recuperating. So there's no guarantee that this is an actual title eliminator, but it absolutely has bearing on the equation. Ankalaev, if he wins this, he would be justified in kind of folding his arms and going, hey, look, I've paid my dues. I need to wait and get my title shot.
I ask that because in his last fight, however you scored it, it was draw, the draw with Jan Blachowicz. Very close fight. A lot of people thought he won. People scored it as a draw, however. But he said that he's never fighting in the USA again. He's got dictators sending private messages to Dana White saying, fix this. So that's why I'm curious on, I mean, I don't know what kind of good graces the UFC or he is in with the UFC. If he just goes out there and melts Johnny Walker, I think that definitely is going to leave him with the case. If you go to the UFC.com right now, Jamal Hill, he relinquished the title, but he's still the champ on their website. So maybe someone got word that his injury is healing up faster. I don't know anything about that. Light heavyweight just all of a sudden got like packed with fun title challengers.
Well,
it's weird.
Prochazka versus Pereira is currently billed as a light heavyweight title fight and not an interim one. So it may just be a case of the UFC not having updated its website. The promotion is sometimes slow at correcting things on its own website. So that may be what it is.
And I don't know if Jamal Hill still, I mean, he probably considers himself the champion. He's probably going to consider himself the champion, even if someone has that belt wrapped around their waist. I'm curious to see what the UFC does with this fight. If Johnny Walker goes out there and melts Magomed Ankalaev in some crazy Johnny Walker way, you can almost be sure Johnny Walker's fighting for a title, just because the winner of Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira is, the winner of Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira. Something crazy is probably going to happen in that fight. This fight here, it's really hard for me to see a path to victory for Johnny Walker, quite frankly. I think this might be like one of the worst fights in the division for him.
I would tend to agree. Normally, if you show me Johnny Walker at plus 270, I'm not much of a bettor, but my instant thought is a guy with that many weapons, there's always a chance. Having said that, Ankalaev is maybe the person in the entire division who leaves the least to chance. Considering that one of the enduring memories of Ankalaev's UFC run so far is the buzzer-beating submission loss to Paul Craig in a fight in which he had won literally the first 14 minutes and 59 seconds. But that is very much an outlier. And that may be down to Paul Craig just being Paul fucking Craig more than any flaws on Ankalaev's part, because for the most part, he is as conservative a tactician as there is in that division. He has the athleticism and the power and the physical tools and the offensive skill set to be far more dynamic and more of a finisher than he is. But his approach tends to be oriented towards preventing bad things from happening to him first and then doing bad things to the other guy. You look at his highlight reel, the guy has, if not back-to-back, 2 head kick knockouts within a 3-fight span. He has some spectacular finishes. He made hamburger out of Anthony Smith. He knocked Iwan Kutalaba out twice, regardless of what Kutalaba says. But then at the same time, he is perfectly happy to grind out dreadful-looking wins over Volkan Oezdemir and Thiago Santos. And it's just down to him deciding where his opponent's greatest threat lies and going to neutralize it. He knows that the one thing that Volkan Oezdemir still did at a top 10 level in 2021 was punch really, really hard. So he just crowded him and smashed him into the cage for 15 minutes. He realized that Thiago Santos, even on bum wheels, is still one of the hardest kickers in the division and kicks to all levels. So he crowded the kicker, took that away from him, and could apparently not give a shit less whether the crowd was entertained or not. That is absolutely not the kind of person you want to trust Johnny Walker to beat, because as overwhelming as Walker is in terms of his physical gifts and obviously his size, when he takes on another fighter that's comparably skilled, they have to make a pretty bad mistake for him to beat him. I go back to the Corey Anderson fight because Johnny Walker came into the UFC out of the Contender Series just blowing through people. We'd never seen anything like this. I still think he is the biggest light heavyweight on the planet. I don't know who's taller between like him and Spawn and Kennedy Zechikwu, or who has the biggest wingspan, but those 3 guys, when they walk into the cage on fight night, I think Walker's the heaviest, and he's close enough in height to make no difference. I think Johnny Walker is the biggest light heavyweight on the planet. And
I think he's the biggest light heavyweight that's ever fought in the UFC. He's huge.
Yeah, he's absolutely titanic. And on top of that, he's very dynamic and fast. Like, you would expect him to be kind of plodding. We're talking about a guy that's effectively the same size as big heavyweights, but the way he moves. But not to go too far down that path, all of that, it led to a certain amount of hype, especially when you consider his exuberant personality, the just full on, the Brazilian dancing down the ramp thing. And Corey Anderson showed, well, you know what? If you're not flustered by all the smoke and mirrors and you know how to take care of yourself on the feet, you can weather that storm and just punch him straight in the face because he has such huge defensive lapses. And that's laid the groundwork ever since. Walker's always dangerous, but fighters who are composed and skilled don't have to be afraid of getting caught in the path of the hurricane. And Ankalaev is the perfect example of that.
Ankalaev is he's a responsible fighter at 205, and you just don't get that often. Even a guy that is, Corey Anderson is not a known puncher, and he's also not a guy that's ever really been able to rely on his durability. Like, we've seen him get, deaded before, and he's been deaded in the same ways that Johnny Walker has been deaded. And when it comes to Johnny Walker, I still feel like a guy that if you just want to go out there and punch him really, really hard, you're going to do it successfully. Like the overhand that Jamal Hill set up on him, it was clean, it was tactful, and Jamal Hill is definitely, we talk about him physically and the way he reads as a guy. He's definitely more athletic than he reads, but Ankalaev is faster and probably better than Jamal Hill in every aspect of MMA. Only thing that he's just not as violent as Jamal Hill. I just don't see. I don't see Magomed Ankalaev dying on a single leg and getting back fist the way that Paul Craig got knocked out. I don't see even today, like the Khalil Roundtree fight is probably Johnny Walker's like most impressive performance in my opinion. Where you could, I mean, it sounded like Have you ever heard someone crack a coconut?
Oh yeah,
Like that's what it sounded like when he was hitting Khalil Roundtree with those elbows in the clinch. But like, if he fought Khalil Roundtree again, like Khalil Roundtree could just go out there and punch him really hard. I think Johnny Walker he's changed his game. His fight with Anthony Smith shown that he can stay composed, he can be relaxed. But then if you look at Anthony Smith, like Anthony Smith seems to be on a very significant decline, and someone like Magomed Ankalaev got Anthony Smith out of there, finished him, injured him, and hurt him. If Anthony Smith and Magomed Ankalaev were matched up in this fight, I think Magomed Ankalaev would finish him violently. Magomed is a great kicker. He has great head kicks. He has good boxing. He can wrestle. He's defensively sound. He takes risks when he's supposed to. Like, look what he did against someone like Ian Cutelaba. His idea was, oh, you're going to be violent and crazy. Cool. I'll just meet you with it and be more responsible and hurt you. Why doesn't he just take the same approach to Johnny Walker?
And that's fair. That's actually a fair analog because Walker is similar in broad strokes to Cutelaba. Like, he's a little bit bigger, but Cutelaba is another guy who's big, powerful, explosive, seems to go in without much of a game plan most of the time and just tries to create chaos and hope he comes out on top of it. That's very much the Johnny Walker approach, and it did not work on Ankalaev at all.
And Johnny Walker's not Jan Blachowicz. Are you going to play a tit for tat poking game with kicks against? Like,
well, if he would, that opens. I mean, it's a whole different fight if Johnny Walker walks out and starts kicking the hell out of Ankalaev's lead leg. Because Ankalaev did not respond well to Blachowicz kicking his legs.
It took him way too long to go to his plan B in that fight. Mm-hmm. It took him way too long to realize he was losing. But again, Jan Blachowicz is, I put him next to Jonathan Martinez as far as like kicking and a better kick checker. Jan Blachowicz might be one of the best kickers in MMA. And I don't know if Johnny Walker is on the level, but I just think Ankalaev can just say, hey, let me make this a war. I'm more durable and I'm more responsible and I can hit just as hard. I see him probably finishing. If he wants to, he can knock Johnny Walker out in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
I think he should. I under 1.5 is probably a smart bet on a fight like this. You get at a plus number, I bet.
I mean, maybe both these guys have gone long recently, even in one-sided fights. I mean, Ankalaev took longer than that to finish Anthony Smith. He went the distance 3 fights in a row before that. And again, his fights with Krylov, Uzdemir, and Santos, he recognized fighters who were limited compared to him, but had 1 or 2 big offensive weapons, and he decided to take the conservative approach. I could see him doing that with Walker. I can see him looking at Walker and saying, yeah, I could knock him out in the first round, but that opens up a 5% chance that I get caught with something silly. Why don't I just grind on him in the clinch, wear him out, and if he's tired at the beginning of the 3rd round, then I turn up the jets.
And just punch him hard. Yeah. I like Magomed by a finish here. And I think all routes kind of lead him to it where he can, make this fight a slow bleed, get him tired and then hurt him. Or he can just if he forces a brawl, he could just win the first exchange. I was high on Johnny Walker in the beginning, and as you can tell, I'm just like not high on him. I still think there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors to his game. I just, I'm not going to call it a facade, but like how long does this non-technical, weird MMA game take him? I don't know how far it's going to take him.
Yeah, I mean, he's won 3 in a row in this division, and while I agree with you that Ankalaev could win a first round firefight and put Walker away early, that opens up Walker's best route to victory if he chooses to go that route. I can't imagine Ankalaev doing that.
Too technical, too smart. You're probably right. I'm hoping for a first round finish. Sounds like we're both on Ankalaev here.
Sure.
This fight should be fun though. Let's hope for violence. A lot of violence on the undercard here, but let's hope this one's violent. It is 205, so you never know what you're going to get. Moving on to a fight that seems like is getting a little bit more attention from the fans than even the main event. This fight is getting tons of eyeballs, tons of hypes behind this fight, tons of hypes behind one of these guys. We got Khamzat Chimaev versus Kamaru Usman. Khamzat Chimaev coming in at, right now I've got him at +2 or -258. Usman coming back at +235. There's a lot of this fight. The way this fight was booked was just weird. Paulo Costa's, did he really ever want this fight, Ben?
I'm sure he wanted it. He is at a point in his career where I think he probably realizes that he needs to make paychecks, and he has a limited window of time in which to do so. For as much of a kind of goofy facade as he puts on, he's been fairly savvy for a lot of his career. I think he wanted this fight. I think he made some poor choices, kind of drawing attention to his staph infection. I mean, better for us. The fight and the card are upgraded by his absence, but yeah, he blew up his own spot last week.
I just got surgery. I have staph infection, but I'm still fighting. Here's a picture of me in the hospital bed. I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
Sherdog exclusive. Last Monday, actually. Yeah, on the 9th, Monday the 9th, that story went up. Everybody went, oh, he's not fighting. And sure enough, less than 48 hours later, it was Usman versus Chimaev.
And this is the fight that we should have, this is what should have just happened. Usman moving up to 185 to fight Khamzat Chimaev on this short of notice is very brave, and it's a very honorable thing to do, especially on the streak that he's on right now. You know, having a good fight and then losing violently at the end of the 5th round, and then coming back and looking like 10 years older in his next fight, not at elevation against Leon Edwards. And then you have Khamzat, who's been out for a really long time. Not a ton of cage time in comparison to Kamaru Usman. You put their fight times next to each other, and the average fight time difference between both of these guys is, huge.
Yeah.
I think this is a tough fight for Usman. If we didn't see the second Leon Edwards fight, I'd feel a little bit different. I want to kick it over to you because I want to hear your analysis on this. I'm going to let you go first, but kind of leaning pretty heavy one way. I'm probably leaning heavy the same way you are. I said on my preview show yesterday, if this fight had been booked, even after Usman's first loss to Edwards, right after Chimaev blew weight and destroyed Kevin Holland, even if you'd booked it right then with Usman coming off a loss and Chimaev coming off another dominant win, I might have favored Usman in this fight. The whole difference is seeing how he looked in the second Edwards fight. Because I do agree with you. He was still competitive. Edwards won a majority decision. One of the official judges scored it a draw. If you go look at MMA decisions, one or two people actually scored it for Usman. A few more scored it a draw. For what it's worth, I thought Edwards won the fight, but worth noting that round by round, it was competitive enough that there was that kind of spectrum of difference of opinion. But he looked slower. The volume that had once defined his striking game was gone. And yeah, that makes me more concerned about a fight with Chimaev. Chimaev has
obviously blown through everybody that's been put in front of him except for Gilbert Burns. But because of that, we haven't really seen him pushed. We haven't seen what it looks like when his first and his second takedown attempts are turned aside. We've had rare, fleeting chances to see what it's like when somebody isn't just freaked out by his speed and power on the feet and actually plants and defends themselves properly and comes back at him. Usman, at his best, offered the opportunity to see all of those things. The Kamaru Usman of even just 18 months ago, I don't know if Chimaev is able to effortlessly bring him down. I don't know if Chimaev could stop Usman from taking him down. The Chimaev or the Usman of 18 or 24 months ago, I think probably busts up Chimaev's face badly with his jab within the first round of the fight. Unfortunately, you have to question Usman's durability at this point. He was knocked cold by Edwards. He was hurt badly by Colby Covington a couple of times, and he was hurt by Gilbert Burns to the point where it looked like we might have a shocking change of title in the first round of their fight, and there we're going back 2.5 years. But Covington, who the one real flaw you can poke at Colby Covington is that he's not a hard hitter. Just, he's not big. He doesn't swing hard. And even he was able to hurt Usman. Then Edwards cleaned his clock. So now when Chimaev lands stuff on Usman, I'm concerned that Usman's not going to be able to recuperate. So yeah, this is an incredible fight, and it's still a better fight than Chimaev versus Costa. But it's not what it could have been even just a little over a year ago. And that's a shame, but it's still something that is going to teach us a lot about both guys. Win or lose, I think Usman's best future lies at 185 pounds. I was disappointed to see the quotes from him this week that he plans to go back down to welterweight and try to retire as a 2-division champ. Hopefully that's just promo talk, and he's more realistic than that. I think his best future lays at 185 pounds because I was talking to Keith about this. There are a ton of top 10 185 pounders that I would favor Kamaru Usman against right now, even in the state he's in. Like,
sure, and there's guys like Roman Dolidze that are just huge that I think would give Usman problems. Remember when Usman was talking about when he did the standoff with Jan Blachowicz and he was talking about going into it? Thank God he never did that. So I feel like Jan Blachowicz would have killed him.
Jan would have.
But that's at 205, not at 85. And again, I mean, Check the Kick is the Jan Blachowicz praise show. I think Jan Blachowicz is the guy that has been severely underrated for a very long time. But for Usman, he again, you nailed it. How many times did Colby is not a known puncher, and he froze and hurt Usman so many times in their fights, through both fights, hurt Usman a lot of times. Honestly, he didn't get dropped, and we know that he ended up finishing Colby and dropped Colby and hurt him, but like, who got hurt more times? Like, I watched those fights recently, and like, Usman's defensive striking was not good there.
No.
Like, he got touched a lot by Colby, and Colby's a high volume guy that will throw things together, will mix up his striking, and he will really get on it. That's his thing. But then you look at the Gilbert Burns fight. I watched that fight just recently, just the other night prepping for this, and Gilbert almost finished Usman.
Yep.
Almost finished him in the first round, hurt him. And Gilbert is a big puncher. He's a guy that has very slept on power. Gilbert's a big, big puncher. One of the biggest punchers probably at 170. I don't think Usman's ever faced a bigger puncher than Khamzat Chimaev. Look what he did to Gerald Meerschaert. Just one punched him, dead.
I mean, my guess would be, that you're right.
Tyron Woodley. Woodley was a big puncher. Gilbert Burns
Woodley was a big puncher, but there's a difference in size, and also Chimaev has the ability to deliver his power through a lot of different weapons. Woodley had a huge right cross, and that was it.
And Khamzat actually throws really straight punches.
Yeah, he throws straight punches. He can kick. He can knee.
Uppercut.
Yeah. So
The uppercut against Ikram Aliskirov, who's unfortunately fighting Worley Alves on this card. I mean, sidebar, how pissed would you be if you were Ikram Aliskirov? If you look at these two late notice fights that got made, and then you get stuck with freaking Worley Alves on like a 3-fight losing streak, and you're a fight. Like, these guys don't want to fight fights like this. Ikram did not come to the UFC to fight these types of fights. For Khamzat, I don't think Usman's ever fought someone that's been a true better athlete than him either. And Khamzat is a better athlete than him. He's much faster. Khamzat's entries, his takedown entries are just lightning fast. The way that Leon Edwards took down Usman in the first round of their first fight, he had back control and if that round, have you watched that fight recently?
Yeah.
The first, there was room for someone else on his back in that position, like Khamzat on his back in that position. That wouldn't have been pretty for him. The way that Leon Edwards kind of got that inside trip takedown with the double underhooks. I watched Khamzat's wrestling match with Jack Hermanson earlier today on my lunch break.
Sure. And
that is something he goes to. Khamzat has so many different takedowns. Usman's knees are shot to hell. I could see, even if Usman defends 2 or 3 takedowns, will Khamzat be deterred? I watched Khamzat go to war with Gilbert Burns and not be deterred at all. And the reason why he didn't impose more grappling, in my opinion, in that fight was just due to Gilbert Burns's ace in the hole with his BJJ accolades. Kamaru Usman doesn't have that.
Nope.
I just think Usman's really up against it. Being up a division should help him with his durability. If we are concerned about his durability, being up a division is going to help him. But the way he looked in that second fight, what Usman was able to do to someone like RDA, just muscle him around, muscle out of stuff, he's not going to be able to hold Khamzat against the cage and control him and punch him to the body and then hit him with shots over the top. I just think he's going to be stranded on an island here. I don't know. He has a good jab.
He has, short list of the best jabs in the sport. He also, even though Chimaev is likely to be a little bit bigger and obviously is freakishly strong, Usman's cage, clinch wrestling against the cage, is on a whole other level even than his wrestling in space in the middle of the cage. We may find that he can stick Chimaev to the chain link, and that Chimaev has a tough time getting him off him there, and let alone going for serious offense or takedowns of his own. That he just has his hands full dealing with Usman, just shoving him into the cage and mugging him there. So that's one place where Usman might find some advantage or might find some respite. If he tries that, and the first time he does, Chimaev spins him into the fence, knees him in the gut, and shucks him off, then we know, okay, maybe that's not a well he can go till. But I expect he's going to try, because that's kind of mission control for the Kamaru Usman offense for the last, almost 10 years now.
Mitigate damage, control. I think this is going to be the first person that we're going to see that has the speed and athleticism and the skills to just out-scramble Usman. Not many people have been able to out-scramble Usman. Colby got a takedown. Leon Edwards' takedown, I think it was unexpected, but it was also very nifty and very tricky.
Yeah.
And, Khamzat's just got a bag of tricks. He's not Bo Nickel.
No.
But he's... if Bo Nickel's the best wrestler in the division, Khamzat Chimaev is definitely the second one, and it's just going to be tough going for Usman here. I'm on Khamzat. I think he probably finishes him here.
I
I
would.
think this fight's going to play out on the feet. And I just think Khamzat is probably just going to hurt him with a 1-2. Something simple.
I think that's as likely an outcome as any. I could see it ending on the ground, but I agree it's probably only going to go to the ground when Chimaev wants it there.
Well, we're both on Khamzat. Shout out to Usman for stepping up on such short notice. I feel like he probably knew about this a little bit sooner than we did. But I mean, what, 3 more days? Big move for him. Big risk. And speaking of risks, we have probably the best fighter in the sport right now taking another giant risk. Islam Makhachev is defending his 155-pound title against
the best fighter in the sport.
Yeah, and another short notice. I mean, these short notice replacement fights for Islam are just nuts. And Volkanovski, man, it's a little Tasmanian devil, isn't he?
He's about the closest thing the UFC has to it. Yeah.
He's just the shit. I'm not even a big fan of his, but he's forced me to be a fan just due to his true badassery. Odds on this fight, he's a plus 200 underdog. Islam's coming back minus 250, minus 245 favorite. Odds in their last fight, I believe Islam was around like minus 320, I think. So I mean, the odds makers are seeing that Volk has still a chance to win this fight.
I haven't listened to winning the first fight.
I haven't listened to your breakdown on this yet. I'm truly all over the place here. I kind of don't know what fight to expect. The way that their last fight played out, it was almost like, yeah, Islam had a lot of success with his grappling. He had a lot of success with the back control. But he could have almost just had a 5-round striking match with Volk and maybe almost won cleaner. Maybe if he didn't wrestle, he wouldn't have been tired.
It's possible, but I think Makhachev's cardio is always going to top out as good and probably never be great. There's just and I think that'll be the case whether he's wrestling or striking. The fighters that have truly legendary cardio that they can weaponize, cardio where they're the fresher fighter whether they're winning or losing. Obviously, part of it is having a manageable weight cut. Part of it is, but like a lot of it is, it's not the size of the gas tank. It's how hard you step on the pedal. There's just a certain economy of motion. There's a certain relaxation that comes from being in familiar situations. And honestly, his mentor / de facto older brother, Khabib, was the master of this, where, yeah, Khabib usually got the takedown on his first try, or if not then certainly his second try. But even as they're working through the takedown situation, his opponent's getting tired faster than he is. Because there are plenty of great wrestlers in MMA that can take down anybody on any, in any given exchange, but some of those guys get tired before their opponent does because they're expending more energy working for the takedown than their opponent is defending it. Makhachev, whether he's on his feet or on the ground, his cardio is good, and he definitely has 3, 4, 5 round cardio when he is dictating the pace. Your cardio looks a lot better when nobody's making you move when you don't want to. I always go back to the ultimate example. Everyone used to always shit on BJ Penn's cardio, his kind of weird, lax training methods. The fact that when he lost, it was usually a fighter coming back and beating him when he looked tired. But Penn always had plenty of cardio when he was winning. It's when people put it on him that he started flagging. Like when Jens Pulver wouldn't go away, when Matt Hughes wouldn't go away, that's when Penn started to look tired. That's just a long way around to saying that I think Volkanovski is always going to make Makhachev tired, whether it's all on the feet or on the ground. Because on the ground, yeah, Makhachev had success. He got Volkanovski down multiple times. Volkanovski knew it. He said it in the lead up to the first fight. Yeah, he's going to take me down. His cardio better be on point because I'm going to get back up. And for the most part, he did over and over again. The fourth round was really the only one where I felt Volkanovski conceded a disadvantageous position for too long. But even with Makhachev, quote, winning the majority of the wrestling against Volkanovski was like relaxed and grinning, fighting off the hands, while Makhachev was kind of straining. Like, if somebody's got you in, if somebody's got you in back mount with a body triangle on and they're working harder than you are, like that's a question of efficiency. And then on the feet, considering how short Volkanovski is, I mean, he's one of the shortest featherweights in the division, and he looked ridiculously stumpy next to Makhachev. Volkanovski is incredible at making his opponent fight off the back foot. I think he has some of the best footwork in MMA. Keith thinks he has the best footwork in MMA. Keith, as you know, the guy with more boxing experience, I defer to him on that, but he's certainly in the team photo for it. And yeah, Volkanovski is just a master at making taller fighters back off him, and it's much more tiring to fight off your back foot, even if, you know, you're a good striker who has plenty of experience at it. I mean, if you're watching this podcast and you want to know what I mean, try walking 100 feet forward and then try walking 100 feet backward and tell me which one has you more tired. And then think of doing both with somebody trying to punch you. So, yeah, if Makhachev wants to make this, okay, I'm going to forget the wrestling, or not forget the wrestling, that would be silly, but like use the wrestling to set up the striking, use the threat of the takedown to keep Volkanovski honest, but conduct this thing on the feet. I don't think that's a smart move on his part. One, Volkanovski hits harder as a single. Like if one of these guys is going to finish the other with a single strike, it's more likely Volkanovski. And Makhachev he won several rounds in their first fight.
He dropped and hurt Volk.
He did.
Multiple times. And
he did.
Definitely caused him to reset, caused him to take a knee. Kind of similar to the way that Max Holloway hurt Volk, but maybe even more so, like in their second fight. What's really cool about Volk, too, is he's not bulletproof.
No.
He doesn't have, like, Max Holloway type durability or John Jones durability. But his technical prowess, like what he does, like he's just fucking good. Like he just does things right. I
think he is the at worst, he is the second most technically perfect fighter in MMA history after Demetrius Johnson. Like, point me to something Alexander Volkanovski does badly.
And when it comes to people that are like the greatest ever, you know, everyone's going to have their own opinion but when it comes to like technically being good at MMA, like good at everything, proficient in everything, can be successful with everything, that's Volkanovski. When you compare him to someone like Islam's predecessor, like Khabib, I will die on the hill saying Khabib is the most dominant fighter to ever grace MMA as far as damage given versus damage accrued. Like, no one even made this dude bleed. That's not Volk's game. He just doesn't have the same set of skills. And I mean, for Khabib also had a game where he was so offensively proficient that he didn't have room for defense. Volk plays a much riskier game than Khabib did. And for he plays a brave game too. Like, he's a short guy. He does have longer arms. He probably has the arm length of a dude that's probably like 5'10", like the average 5'10" UFC fighter that's maybe up a weight class. But when it comes to strength, even Islam was like, this dude's strong. For Islam to say someone is physically strong, and if you know the dudes that Islam Makhachev surrounds himself with in a training atmosphere, if Islam's going to call you strong, you're probably real strong. And I think that's something that gets a little bit slept on when it comes to Volk in his game. He seems like a dude that's as strong as the average welterweight.
Oh, look at the way he finishes takedowns at featherweight.
Like,
yeah, no, I agree with you. Look at the way he finishes takedowns, at least at featherweight, where it's the Michael Chandler thing, where it's like, yeah, I have good technique. I know how to turn the corner, but I've got your one leg here. You're sprawling. I'm just going to high crotch you and throw you over my shoulder anyway. No, like, I agree that because he's short in stature, some people might underestimate his strength, but God, have you looked at the guy? And have you seen pictures of him from when he played Australian rules football? He weighed 200 pounds and it wasn't fat. Like, he's a fucking ox. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up other ways Makhachev might approach this second fight, because that was a big part of what Keith and I discussed on the preview. When you have a rematch of a contest that took place fairly recently, I mean, it was Makhachev's last fight, it was Volkanovski's second to last fight. It's real fresh in everybody's mind what happened in the first fight, and both fighters have whatever their list is to take back to the drawing board from that first fight. Like, here are the things that surprised me, here are the things that I could have done better, here were any mistakes I made. It'll be interesting to see whether Makhachev, who up until 10 days out was preparing for a very, very different opponent, like almost the polar opposite, a long, gangly guy who's a kicker and long puncher on the feet and a submission grappler par excellence on the ground, to Volkanovski, who's almost the opposite. It'll be interesting to see if Makhachev just goes, well, what worked the first time worked, it'll work this time, just keep your hands up in the fifth round. Whereas Volkanovski, obviously, it didn't go his way the first time. What adjustments or changes does he need to make? I'm interested to see if Makhachev approaches this fight differently than he did the first one.
I think the MMA community, the Twitter space, and everything definitely made this fight was a close fight. But I think the MMA community, and unfortunately the way that a lot of the MMA community feels about like Dagestan fighters and the name that they have, they get a lot of shade. And Volk, moving up a weight class, he's definitely the hero. He's the hero in this fight. He's the Rocky. Islam's the Drago in a fight like this. But watching their first fight, I was so surprised where we're like, oh my God, Islam's outstriking Volk in a lot of these strikings. Oh, he's hurting Volk. And look at Volk. Volk is getting hip tosses. Volk is getting takedowns. So they both had success where they were supposed to lose, which was just super interesting. So I'm very curious to see how this fight goes, especially the way Islam looked towards the end of that fight, where he looked like he saw a ghost. He was gasping for air, and he was praying to make it out, knowing he was probably up on the cards. As for Volk was definitely going for it, looking for a finish. Volk has come out, and I don't like the things that Volk is actually saying this week ahead of this fight, and I typically don't try to read into that, but he made a video saying, 11 days, I'm off the couch. What are you going to do about it? And a guy like Volk, he's not Apollo Costa. He's not a guy that's going to put something out there to make himself look good, to have a built-in excuse. But I just don't like when fighters at this level say stuff like that. Like, I don't want to say he's counting himself out, but he's, saying the odds are against me. And numerically, they clearly are. The bettors do think the odds are against him. I have a weird feeling, and last time I picked Islam, but I have a feeling Volk might break the over 35-year-old 170 and under curse. I just got a weird feeling, man. I don't even know the X's and O's, because I don't know what's going to happen, because they both had so much success with, each of their dominant styles. I just got a feeling that, like, in the third and fourth rounds, like, Volk might hurt this dude.
Here's something to think about here. You would never say it, like, meaning a fighter. Like, the fighter would never say it. But you just mentioned fourth and fifth rounds. Up until a couple days ago, Islam Makhachev was not planning on having to fight a fourth or fifth round. He was taking on a guy that, win or lose, had only been into the third round, or like had only been past like the 1 minute mark of the third round like once in his last 15 fights. The last time he
was
fought,
getting finished by Paul Felder.
no, it was him like turning. It was him folding Tony Ferguson's laundry with Tony still in it.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, it was the last time he fought Oliveira, he destroyed him in 2 rounds. Obviously, he's well prepared. He's had a full camp for this fight. He wasn't taking Charles Oliveira lightly in terms of the threat that Oliveira poses, but you would prepare differently for a fight if it's Charles Oliveira, who tends to live or die by the sword within the first 9 minutes of a fight, or Alex Volkanovski, who is going to take you on a trip through hell for 25 minutes and trust himself to come out on top. Couch or not, Volkanovski may be better prepared for the last rounds of this fight than Makhachev is.
I think some people too, I hate to use this term, built different, but some people cardiovascularly are just built different. You've got certain guys that can just, there are, people that can go and run 100 miles and be fine. And there are people that would look similarly in shape to those, hook them up to a machine and they might, be giving you the same clean bill of health, but the other dude might only be able to run 20 and he's done. Mm-hmm. Volk. Another thing too is, I don't know if Islam is going to be one of the greatest fighters of all time. Volk is already one of the greatest fighters of all time. And shit like that, like he's an anomaly, like stuff like that matters. From what I saw in Islam's last fight against Volk, I don't think Islam will ever be better than Khabib. He took more damage in one round than Khabib did in his whole career. If this was Khabib fighting Volk on short notice, if Khabib got into a lot of those positions that Islam got Volk into, he'd have probably finished him. But Islam's not Khabib.
No.
I don't think he's the same type of violent punisher either. I don't think he's got the same tenacity.
I would tend to agree with you. Obviously, the comparisons are inevitable just because they're close friends, longtime training partners, mentor-mentee relationship, but and their skill set and their physical tools are similar in broad strokes. But to Makhachev's credit, he's a more diverse and technically sound striker than Khabib ever was already.
100%.
But I agree that Khabib is physically bigger and stronger. Like I've not been to a session at AKA, but I imagine that Khabib gets the better. Well, now he gets the better of the wrestling because he's 200 pounds. But even when they were both active, probably got the better of the wrestling against Makhachev, just as a little bit better wrestler, a little bit stronger guy. And with more of that efficiency that I talked to you about a few minutes ago, when Khabib was wrestling somebody, there's no question who's winning, whether Khabib has gotten the takedown or not yet. If the other guy is crouched against the cage, trying to fight off the Dagestani leg ride from the outside and covering like this, even if Khabib isn't punching him yet, there's no question who's got the momentum and who's getting tired faster. Because the one dude is hyperventilating and Khabib is just circling like a shark. And then on top of that, I agree that there's a certain intangible, there's a meanness. I'm old school enough that I go, well, yeah, Mark Coleman and Mark Kerr. Mark Kerr was a better technical wrestler. He was much better natural athlete. He was in his physical prime where Coleman didn't even start fighting in MMA until he was in his 30s. But one of those dudes was a mean guy that liked to throw down, and the other was actually kind of a kind and sensitive dude that, threatened to drop out of his first tournament in Brazil if he saw blood, and he didn't mean his own. Like, yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm not saying Makhachev isn't mean. Like, plenty of people will attest to that. Ask Thiago Moises or Bobby Green, whether Makhachev is a nice guy. But
Dan Hooker's arm.
Yeah, that kind of like classic stereotypical ice cold Russian thing where it's a reason why Khabib was such a source of hilarious sound bites, because he would just say the coldest shit with this funny Russian accent and like no expression. Smish, you know, that kind of shit.
Sure.
So I agree.
They're both pit bulls, but like Khabib is the pit bull that you fed some gunpowder to. You know what I mean? Like he's just like, you know, he's just really, and Volk has that, like he's got that dog in him where like he has that meanness. He has a mean streak. He will go to war. He will, when time gets tough, like Volk gets going, like he's that dude. Craig Jones in his corner. He's already talking about having counters for these, you know, head and arm positions that Islam likes to go for. Craig Jones is a guy that's grappling game is kind of, it's really a game like his is built to built to be combative toward combat sambo specialist. You know, if they're the A, he's the Z, he's the other side. And I just think Volk's got the tools to get this done. I didn't know who I was going to pick until I started talking about it. My heart tells me Islam, because Islam, I do think he's bigger. He can get the back control. If he wants to win an Aljamain Sterling type fight where he just nullifies Volk for 3 rounds and doesn't die, he could totally win a fight like that. But something tells me something special is going to happen on Friday. I feel like Volk might just go out there and be willing to. He did get hurt. He was getting counterpunched very beautifully by Islam. He was go to the body. Islam will pull back and rip him with straight shots, straight lefts. Islam's southpaw striking game is going to give Volk some problems here, but I think Volk might just go for it. I think Volk might get it done here.
Yeah, I mean, I am not going to spoil my actual final pick. You can go check out my previous show. I've already talked about this fight, I think, longer than I did on there. But you aren't the only person that thinks he might pull off something remarkable at the old Etihad Arena on Yaz Island on Saturday.
This is going to be a long episode, guys. Go listen. If you're listening to this show, you already listened to Ben and Keith's show. It's a very good show. It's a wonderful show. Tell me what you guys in the comments think who's going to win this fight. I'll be ready to come back and eat some crow next week. Until then, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come on and talk about these fights with me. And
you bet.
Hope everyone enjoys the fights.
Absolutely.